Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Darshan Shah with the Next Health Forefront podcast. And I'm here with my co-host, Kevin Peak, the president of Next Health. And we are honored to have Serena Poon with us today, who I was lucky to meet a few months ago at a conference or at a really fun event that we were at. And we were sitting next to each other. We started chatting and we totally discovered that we're all into the same things and same mindset. So I'm so happy to have you here on this podcast. And Serena, a little bit about you. You are a celebrity chef, nutritionist, and Reiki master, right?
Yes.
That's amazing. You're incredibly popular. I mean, you're all over the place. You talk in conferences, you do different seminars, and you also have a TV show called Serena Loves,
Yes.
which anyone can watch on YouTube or on Spotify, and everywhere you can find podcasts and those things. And you also have product lines that you've developed, which we're going to talk about too, like Just Add Water, which I love. I'm drinking some right now. Fell in love with it the first time I ever had some. So I'm eager to dive in with you about all things holistic nutrition and especially culinary alchemy. That sounds really, really interesting. But before we get to culinary alchemy, let's find out a little bit about you. Like, what was your journey? What brought you to this point? How did you end up in LA doing nutrition and cooking for the stars?
Well, first, thank you both so much for having me here today. I was so excited and I loved when we met. It was just so synchronistic, and we are all sort of in that same heart tribe and same mindset of, whole body health and helping everyone get there. So thank you so much again for having me. It's really an honor. My journey really started with my parents. So when I was in college, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. So it was something that was, genetic. His grandfather had also passed on the same thing, and he was, careful about it, and as an adult, checked it every 6 months or so. And in between 2 6-month checkups, it somehow got to stage 4.
Oh, wow.
So, and that was something that I couldn't even really process at the time. None of us could, and obviously incredibly unprepared. And, while he was, getting treated, he did traditional Western medicine, which is the chemotherapy and the radiation. And then we also had Chinese medicine. We had, family that was like smuggling herbs in from like China and Hong Kong for us. And we really tried everything. And he was only with us for about 1 year and 3 months when he lost that battle. And then 2 months later, and he was really young, he was like 48. And then 2 months after he passed, our mom was diagnosed with cancer. She was 45, and it was some rare form of ovarian cancer that the doctors, they can date from the size of the tumor and the speed of growth that pretty much came about when my dad was at his sickest and dying, because there was no history of cancer in her side of the family. So during that time, I really dived into like plants and herbs and trying to find ways to give him either comfort or alleviate some of the symptoms of the disease or of the treatment, because that was all I knew to do to help. And in that process, and I was studying nutrition in college because I just, had an interest in it. And growing up, we're a family of foodies, and my parents always cooked. So that was really kind of how I started getting into food as healing, was during that time in my life, and just wanting to find ways, again, to just provide some sort of comfort. And, instead of going to law school, which is what I was supposed to do. I was like first generation Chinese American. I decided to go to culinary school so that I could really understand and take, the culinary arts and apply it to food and use it as, food as healing and as medicine. And so that was sort of how my journey really began.
Not just any culinary school. You went to Cordon Bleu, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I studied the Cordon Bleu because it's just, I wanted to be able to give the best, you know, and at that time it was such a instant perspective shift. You're like 20, 21 and your priorities are so 20, 21-year-old. And then this happens, and all that was important at the time was just the health and happiness of the people that I loved. And that was it. And it was a great goal and a great promise to give to my dad, even though It wasn't what he asked of me, but ironically, in that process, I was letting go of self-care and not, and kind of sacrificing my own needs and my own sleep and energy just to make sure everyone else was okay, which is how eventually in my own sort of journey and personal development, it led me to spirituality, which is what led me to Reiki and that sort of intuitive, spiritual nutrition and energy work that I give to my clients now. But that was sort of how it began. And when I was in culinary school, they did something called an stage with like the top students in the school towards the end of your time there, and they took you to the Beverly Hills Hotel, which is like where that was where the night before party was before the Oscars, and it was a really big deal. And all the top A-listers, I think this is like before reality TV was a thing. So like, it was like the Brad Pitts and the,
real
the Halle
actors.
Berrys.
Right. Celebrities were actually
like real celebrity actors.
Really and I remember I was there and I'm working this party and I'm walking around and it was all these incredible stars and I remember I'm at my shrimp scampi station and I'm cooking shrimp scampi and I look up and it's Harrison Ford, who's like Indiana Jones. I mean, I grew up thinking I was going to be an archaeologist. I was like, 7. And I thought, this is what I want to be doing. These are the caliber of people that I want to be working for and cooking for. And I have such a connection with people and with food that I didn't want to just be on the other side of a swinging door in a big kitchen. I wanted to be able to have that rapport with my clients. And so that's how I started my professional career. Was I went from that, I did an internship with at the Playboy Mansion for Heth. And then they hired me on after. So that was my first job. And then from there, I was there for about 1.5 years. And then I started my own, private chef and catering business. And so, and I added in nutrition. So that's kind of like the beginning of the journey.
Wow.
So Playboy got you started.
They
He did that for a lot of people, a lot of girls, but you just in the culinary world.
For me, just in the kitchen.
Gotcha.
I know. They did try to get me in the magazine. These people.
That's so funny.
I'm sure they would have loved an edition of that in the kitchen and, that whole experience.
Yeah.
It was, if I were to write a book that would probably take up at least 2 or 3 chapters.
I bet.
All kinds of
I'm
fun
sure.
and interesting stories.
I bet you see some crazy things.
I did while cooking.
Yeah, while cooking.
So
That's funny. So what's really interesting about your approach is one of the things I really love about your approach is you tie in spirituality with nutrition. And
Yeah.
so I want to hear more about the interconnections there and how you do that.
well, again, that it really kind of came from my personal journey. It was, I was doing all the right things, from like a nutrition standpoint, from food, physically, but I also had some health issues that really kind of came from what happened with my parents and not really processing that experience and not understanding that was a form of PTSD for what had happened with our family and sort of this instant overnight change and not having the proper guidance or support and also not knowing how to get it. So that sort of stress, and as I said, I sort of gave up my self-care because I thought that self-sacrifice would better everyone else around me. And so I had some of my own health issues. So I had to have a surgery to remove some, damaged tissue caused from inflammation. And from that surgery, I got MRSA, basically like straight out of the OR. And that stayed with me. I ended up having 8 surgeries to try and kind of get rid of it. It was just sort of had just dug itself deep inside in my chest, and it was a thing. It was an issue for several years, and I almost died after 2 surgeries because one, I had a massive hematoma like 12 days post-op and bled out, lost almost like 2 liters of blood. It was kind of crazy. But during that part of my journey, it was what I realized I wasn't really taking care of myself on an emotional and a mindful level. And so that really brought me to, a stronger mindset and diving into spirituality. And I realized how much that helped me. And so I started implementing that into my programs with my clients because because there was a period of about 6 months I really couldn't even use like my left arm, and like this upper portion of my body. And as a chef, that's kind of important, And so during that time, I was like, okay, what do I do? This is my career. How am I going to support myself? How am I going to get through this? And I realized I was giving so much nutritional information. It was just part of what I did as a private chef, that I decided I would branch out and really do this nutritional consulting that's become such a core part of my practice. And going into that direction and adding in the spirituality made me realize how important that was as a pillar of the business of my practice, and diving in and understanding how certain foods actually, connect with your energetic body, and if you believe in energy and the chakra system and all these different modalities, whether they're meridians from a Chinese medicine perspective and these pressure points, or your chakra system, there are foods that can support every one of those systems. And so, each of us is different. So there's no exact program there's no one size fits all. But as I've worked with clients, I've realized, okay, we do food intolerance tests as you do. We see what what are inflammation points for you, but we also factor in what's going on with your life, like where are you at right now? Are you in a place where you need some more emotional support? Are you in a place where you're healing from maybe a breakup or a loss, or you're preparing for a surgery or healing from one? There are foods that kind of help ground you into your own body. There are foods that help connect you to your own body, because we all have that, we all have that beacon, we all have that intuitive knowing. And so it's feeding your body and supporting yourself in a way where you connect a little bit more. So obviously no processed foods,
Right.
whole foods, connecting with Mother Nature, connecting with foods and the energy from, say, plants is so important to connecting with yourself and knowing what's right for your body. So that's, kind of how that sort of developed.
Wow. Is that what Culinary Alchemy is?
That's basically what Culinary Alchemy is. It's
Wow.
that magic. It's combining, the education that I share with all, the clients or from my community, with nutrition that's sort of built from a functional approach, an integrative approach, holistic approach, and then also connecting with that intuitive energy, which I can provide working one-on-one with people, but I like to teach it as well, so that you can connect, to your own energetic body and know and understand how you can feed that to support your physical body in that way.
It's amazing.
So-
On this journey that you've been on, has there been any big kind of revelations along the way, or kind of, nuggets of wisdom that you can share that are, it seems like a lot of what you do is very personalized and individualized.
Sure.
But what, I guess, universal philosophies have been really impactful for you that, we can share with the listeners that they could try to incorporate into their own life?
There's actually quite a few. I would say that the power of mindset is so key, right? And everything, whether it's a motivational speaker or a coach or, your nutritionist, everyone can tell you their own methods, but it really comes from the same place. So what I like to teach people is, it's this little test that I've done, and it's really reading your body. Like, you can read your body to know if something connects with you or not. It could even be blueberries, and blueberries may be great, and they're really healthy, but they may not be good for your body. And so there's something that I teach people to connect with your body, and it's a simple little practice that you can do at home. And it's where you can take two pieces of paper, they identical, like a Post-it note, right? And then write down one thing that, from, say it's a food, something that you really, really love. And it can be pizza. It can be anything that you really love, and you feel it. You actually feel it, like almost viscerally. Like when you think about that food, like your body has a physical response to it, right? Write that down on that piece of paper. Fold it up. On the other paper, write down something that you absolutely cannot stand. Like it can be anything, but you think about this food and you're just like, ugh, you have a physical response where you don't like that. You can almost feel what happened last time you had it, which is something terrible. So write it down, same size piece of paper, fold it up so it's the same. take these 2 pieces of paper, put it in your hands, shake it up, have one in each hand, and then ask yourself which hand is holding the food that you love. And your body actually, everything is energy. Your body and your mind, they connect. And you can do it a few times, obviously, and there will be little messages and indicators that your body physically gives you as it's connecting to that feeling that you have. So practice this, try this. It's something that a healer actually taught me. And so once you kind of get that muscle going, that's an exercise that you can use for almost everything. So whether it's food, like, do I really want that? Or is that something I'm just like feeding my ego, feeding my brain? I'm just trying to procrastinate. Like, do I really want that food? What is it that I want to eat? Or a decision for something, whether it's a job or a meeting or whatever it is. Like, your body, your mind, and your body will connect and tell you if that's something that you want to do. So it's a really quick, easy little practice that anyone can do. And the more you do it, the more you pick up those little indicators, the messages that your body gives you.
That's really cool.
We do food sensitivity tests through blood draw, and I feel like you're doing it through like intuition through that process. Like, what's gonna really resonate with me?
Yeah, and imagine now so in my practice, we combine those food sensitivity tests and those inflammation markers. So we've got the labs, and then we have sort of like an intake with like what your lifestyle and what your goals are, and then we add this energetic, sort of like test, which is very much the same. So when you have it all in front of you, you really can sort of create and craft
you get a full picture then. Yeah.
And I can do it with you. It's like a one-time consult, or you can kind of figure out how to do it on your own because you see it all in front of you. Wow. And what's really important is to remember that you are I think we're all so hard on ourselves these days, and there's so much comparing going on. And something that I always remind myself of, and something that I still have to work on all the time, is that there is no one that is me, and that makes me incredibly powerful. And it's something that we have to remind ourselves of all the time, because then that makes self-care such an absolute non-negotiable thing. And self-care is the first thing that we cross off our list when our days are busy, when we've got a lot of other responsibilities, whether we have kids or, tons of employees or whatever it is. Self-care is usually one of the top 3 things to go.
Yep.
And when you realize how important you are and what you bring and how no one else can bring what you bring, it's your responsibility to take care of yourself, because it's your responsibility towards everyone else in the world too. Which is why the slogan for Just Add Water is simplify your self-care. It's almost like a daily reminder for myself as well, is that has to be a non-negotiable. And of course, that's something I learned from my own personal journey when it was something I gave up.
Yeah.
It's like being on the plane. You put the oxygen mask on yourself first before helping someone else. I mean, if you're not able to take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to help anyone else.
Yes. So, and it's to remind yourself, you're really important, The person sitting next to you is, but you're really important too. So this is what you've got to do.
Right. And that's so true. Like, everyone gives up self-care first. That's the first thing to go. And what happens is people give it up one day, then they give it up the next day.
Yes.
And then it just fades away from their life for years and years and years, and before you know it, it hasn't been something they've done for years, And I see a lot of people that don't practice any form of self-care, other than maybe they'll every January get a gym membership, and that's about it. So I'm curious about the topic of self-care and what it means to you, because I feel like everyone has a different kind of opinion about what self-care really involves, and so spiritual self-care is obviously a big part of what you're teaching as well. Would you give us a little rundown of what you talk to your clients about as far as self-care goes, what routines to incorporate, what to think about?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a big believer of rituals and routines. It's something that you just have to start to implement, and it could be just 1 or 2 things, and then it becomes a habit, and you don't have to think so hard about it. But when it comes to self-care, honestly, it's anything that truly nurtures you, that you feel nurtured from. If you want to have that piece of dark chocolate after dinner and that's your thing every night, it's fine if you feel like that nurtures you. Now, if you're having that piece of dark chocolate because you are unhappy and you're stressed out and you feel like this is going to give you a moment of happiness, that's not exactly nurturing,
Right. Can't use it to fill a void.
No, yeah.
Right.
So, using food or anything to anesthetize, your feelings is not a good practice. But when you feel nurtured from it, and we all know what that feeling is, it's like a hug. When you get a hug from someone, or from a stranger even, that feeling that you get, that's self-care that you want to give yourself. So whether it's setting aside 10 minutes to really make that tea, that coffee, that latte, and like that's your time, and then to really put that into your body and allow your body to receive it, as opposed to, I need the caffeine, otherwise I'm going to die in 15 minutes. That's self-care. And or just carving out 15 minutes, and ideally that 15 minutes can grow into maybe an hour throughout the course of a day, whether you do it all at once at one part of the day or throughout the course of the day. But I tell clients to start with what seems manageable for you. That's not really stressful. Start with 5 minutes in the morning, and before you get out of bed, go through your gratitude list. Go through 3 to 5 to 10 things that make you feel good, that you're grateful for. And what I usually do from that step, and that's something that's doable for people. After that, you need to go through 3 to 5 to 10 things about yourself that you're grateful for, which is usually a little bit more challenging for people, but so important because, again, it grounds you into who you are, the value that you bring to this world, and why it's so important that you set aside this time, to do this for yourself. And then you set aside time for the next step, which is, your morning ritual, whatever it is. You get your 15 minutes in the hot shower thinking about nothing, or going through your affirmations, or I have my morning lemon water and my little immunity elixirs and my Just Add water and my juice. And, everyone has their own sort of routine that nourishes them. So you find yours, but you commit to that in a way where there's no guilt. This is something that's feeding your body and your soul, and it allows you to bring so much more and give so much more back. So that's usually what I go through with clients, and then we kind of figure out what times of the day works best for them.
Got it. Very nice.
I feel like we're getting a message today.
Yeah.
We've done 3 podcasts today. And all 3 of them have had a very significant conversation on self-care and gratitude, and really building that into your everyday. So I feel like we're getting that message that we need to bring that in and incorporate that a little bit more.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things that I do. So I'm not good at keeping routines going sometimes, and I need like a cue for a routine. So for gratitude especially, like that's one that I just somehow forget to do it sometimes. So I have this journal called the 5-minute journal. Have you seen this thing?
I have seen it, actually.
I love it. I've been using it for years. I've gone through like 4 journals.
That's awesome.
And my kids have journals. They have 5-minute journals for kids. And it prompts you to write down 3 things that you're grateful for, and write down 3 affirmations. So like what you're saying, like 3 things you're grateful for about yourself. And then you write down, at night, you write down something amazing that happened that day. Because we forget what happens in our day, and we only focus on the negative a lot. And just that mind shift is such a powerful change in your life.
Absolutely.
To go from negative to positive in your brain. And, I'm a big optimist. Like I'm always optimistic every single day going through life. But it's easy to slip into thinking about the negatives all the time.
Sure.
And sorry, the change in your biology that happens when you switch from pessimism to optimism is gigantic.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I love that. And I do that at night as well, to kind of go back over. And I think what you said is really important, kind of go back over your wins that day. I mean, go through like what you're grateful for. Some are going to be the same every day, but you go through your wins that day, because we're always already like 5 steps ahead. Like what I have to do tomorrow, the next week, the next month, and this project and that project. And when you really have that practice of gratitude, something that where it's just kind of solid in you, you're able to be present. And when you're present, you can really sit here and say, wow, like, I'm so grateful to be here right now and doing this podcast with you guys. Like, this is amazing, and I'm here, and that's, I think, what helps us. We get there by practicing gratitude,
Right. And I think also as humans, we're more pain adverse than we are pro pleasure.
Yeah.
Right. If you can have two choices, one path you're going to get a bunch of pleasure, or one path you're going to get a bunch of pain.
Yeah.
You'll do more to avoid the pain.
Sure.
Than you will to go down the path of pleasure.
Sure.
Because pain is, you could die from it. People have this innate fear, so it's kind of a survival mechanism that we have that programs us in this way. But the reality is, that goes all the way back to the caveman years when pain was because there's a tiger that's going to attack you and eat you.
Yeah.
But our pain is different these days.
Right.
Like, we live in a society where most things aren't life or death.
Right.
So, actually, gratitude is more powerful than avoiding pain. But it's hard we actually have to make a conscious decision as humans to change the wiring in our brain to allow that to be the case.
It's so true, and it doesn't take that long. If you do it every day for a week, 2 weeks, I mean, it just becomes breathing. It becomes so simple. It's just sticking to that, which is the same for obviously food, diet, exercise, all of it. If you can just get yourself to stick to it for 2 weeks, you can manage the rest of the time yourself. I actually set alarms on my phone. So I'll have alarms on my phone that will say, journal, that will say, just like little messages throughout my day that will pop up, and it'll remind me that, like, oh, okay, let me take a few minutes and just like sit and be still for like 5 minutes, or write something in my journal, because you have your phone on you all the time. Right. You don't always have your journal with you, but you at least have your phone with you all the time. Well, most of us do. So.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So I want to touch on nutrition. Well, not I want to touch on it. I want to dive deep into nutrition.
Oh, yeah, let's
because
go.
This is obviously a huge area of expertise for you. And I find that many people that are in the world of nutrition, a lot of the messages are, of course, similar, but people also have a lot of philosophies of how they approach the topic with their clients. And I'm very interested to hear, when you have a new client, how do you get their mind kind of set in the right direction about how they should think about food and nutrition as a whole? Because, I myself meet a lot of my clients that they're just completely off base on what they think. And they've been, because they've listened to the government has given them an upside down food pyramid, and all this misinformation. And I have to unwind a lot of that, So I'm curious on your approach with that.
Well, it kind of depends on where they're coming from already. I am fortunate that I do have a lot of clients that are already, they're health conscious, but there's so much misinformation, and there's overwhelmed with so many different philosophies and opinions that they're not quite sure. Do I do keto? Do I do paleo? I mean, there's, especially with all these different trends, it's confusing for them. But most of them at least have a mindset or a desire, to be healthy and to feel good. So what I usually do is, we start with their lifestyle. We obviously run the labs, we do the intuitive readings, but I want to know what their lifestyle goals are, and that to me is the most important, because we want to create something that's very sustainable, and it's something that doesn't feel intimidating. So for most people, they want to, most people want to lose a little weight, everyone kind of wants that little extra 15% to get them closer to perfection, so we talk a lot about how perfection isn't, the goal that we want, and there's a bunch of mindset and guidance with that. But when it comes to nutrition, that is the main thing, is that everything that we set up, I'm like, we can modify this. So let's start with the first week, what are your goals for this week? What is it that you have that's coming up? Whether they are trying to lose weight, they have a wedding, they are trying to get pregnant, they have an issue, or, maybe an illness that they're trying to get past or heal or prep for surgery. We start immediate, what is your goal for the next week? What's your goal for the month? And then what's your goal for the next 3 months? And so we just sort of implement basic things. So what I like to do is add in. So I'm very big on what you release, you also want to replace. So taking away maybe one quote bad habit or food or like dietary habit that they know is not the healthiest, whether it's refined sugars or processed or packaged food. So taking away one or two of those habits or foods, but then replacing it with something so that they don't feel like they're being punished. They don't feel like they're giving up something, and getting them to understand, explaining everything that we're putting into their body when we create a plan, how the science behind how these foods and what you're doing is actually healing you, feeding you, and it's prolonging your life. And so I think that once people understand the science behind it, and when they understand why broccoli is so good for you, why your gut health is so important, when they understand that, they're much more connected to the plan. They're much more connected to the food because they get it. It's not just like they're doing something that someone told them to do. I mean, how long does that last for all of us, right? But once you're connected and you understand why, you're much more inclined to do it. So that kind of education is that's why it's one of the main pillars of my practice, because then you'll do it. It's almost like you're empowering yourself to do it.
Right. Fantastic. And then do you, so in the world of nutrition, you have different ratios, like you mentioned, paleo and keto, and there's all these different ways of looking at how to kind of proportion your diet out. How do you approach that part of it with people?
Well, I'm plant-based, so
What does that mean? Can you explain exactly what plant-based means?
Okay.
I mean, I think I have a definition, but everyone has a little bit different definitions. I'd love to hear yours.
Well, I'm plant-based, so I consider myself a vegan. Plants and fruits and vegetables are primarily what I take into my diet. When I was recovering from surgery, I did have, bone broth, and I did add collagen and, certain things that I knew would help heal and to help sort of aid and speed up that healing process, plus lots of hyperbaric oxygen treatment. So that's what I consider being plant-based. And so being plant-based, I recommend being forward, which is just have a lot of vegetables, and fruits, but primarily vegetables in your diet, even if you're someone that feels like you need animal protein in whatever format that you want it, whether it's seafood or chicken or beef, but obviously to make sure that that's well, properly raised and ethically raised. So I'm sorry, let me go back. What was your original question?
Yeah, about the proportions. And I think you addressed it. Yeah. So mostly plant-based, a little bit of protein if you need it. And as far as choosing plants goes, do you have some rules that you give people along those lines?
I am all greens.
Yeah.
I am a huge fan of greens. People ask me about my hair. They ask me about my skin. I'm always like, greens. You want the darker the greens, the more greens, the better for you. So whether or not you get it, fresh or raw or steamed or cooked in some way, or you get it juiced or blended or in a raw powdered format, that's, you want to get that into your body. It's alkalizing, it's healing, it's nutritious, it's nutrient dense, it's all the things. So to try and get that into your body every single day, even if it's not like a meal, I'm a big fan of doing a green juice every day. If you can't do it every day, do at least 4 days a week, and if you're someone that has alcohol, then you should be having a green juice for every glass of alcohol that you have, and that's my big rule for my clients,
Can you just mix? Can you just make mixers with the green juice?
You're like, here,
kill two birds with one stone?
Exactly.
You should actually make a line of mixers, like a green juice mixer.
Perfect. You can pour this in with your tequila
That seems to give people
water.
an excuse to drink more. It's like,
you got to put a disclaimer on there.
Right.
Well, I mean, technically they're still getting it into their bodies, so I wouldn't say no, don't do it. Maybe do it in addition to, but yeah, I mean, that's something that for your community, that is one thing I will always say. Try to do a green juice without sugar, once a day, or at least 4 or 5 days a week. And it'll really change your life, and it doesn't have to be a meal replacement. It can be any time of the day. Just get it in you, and it'll really help.
What do you think about powdered greens?
I think depending on on the brand and how it's processed and packaged, it can be really beneficial, especially for travel. I mean, that's why we have Just Add Water, because it's better to get it in you in some way, shape, or form than not at all, And granted, there are some, kales, there are certain vegetables that are better lightly steamed. You can get more nutrients out of it. But for the most part, getting it in you at all is going to help you.
Can I ask you though, when you say depends how it's processed and packaged? I mean, how do we know when you're looking to choose a good green powder? Because
Right.
I'm a fan of that. For traveling, for convenience, I want to be
Yeah.
able to get it in me when I need it.
Yeah.
How do you really make that call?
That's I mean, to be honest, for the consumer, it's tough because it is such an oversaturated market, you know,
Right.
and everybody's got something, and I understand because we're part of that market
Right.
now, and it's really about doing your research on the brand, or at least on who the founders of the brand are. Like, do you trust them? Do they stand behind what it is that they do and their lifestyle? And you know, that's probably the best way. And we make a lot of phone calls, you know, when we're using different products, or if products want to partner up or sponsor, we really dive deep to see what their process is, where they source from, how they do it, and who, you know, who their founders are, you know,
Right.
who are these people that are creating this brand? Are they in the country? You know, I mean, so I think that, and that's a tough question because there is a lot of research that can go into it, but that would probably be the best way. It's always sort of empower yourself with that education. That knowledge is definitely power, and giving yourself that I guess those options to know, okay, there's 72 different greens powders out there, but there's really only 5 that are the top 5 or the best that I know I trust and I can rely on. And you know, it's something that we should all really do because we have the resources and the information is out there to sort of educate ourselves.
So speaking of just powders and let's talk about Just Add Water a little
Yeah.
bit, because when I came to do your show,
Yeah.
I was looking around for coffee and you're like, no, don't drink coffee, drink this instead.
Yeah.
And literally, it was amazing. It felt like I had drank a cup of coffee, but it felt much cleaner. I did not feel like that crash afterwards,
Yeah.
and my head wasn't like buzzing. It just
Yeah.
felt great.
Yeah.
And I mean, the color's
Yay.
green, so I'm drinking some right now, and I
Yeah.
love it. So tell us a little bit about Just Add Water and what's in it and what it does for you.
Well, yeah, thank you for asking. Just Add Water it's actually a recipe that I've created like years ago, you know, and I did it for clients because I have all these clients that travel all the time, like all of us, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're in front of the camera, behind the camera, no matter what it is you do, working busy mom, you're always go, 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 you know, and you barely have a second, you know, from getting from point A to point B where you've got to be on because you're there for a meeting or for a presentation or for what have you, right? And especially when you travel too, you land and most of us don't give ourselves a day to just ease into the conference or the trip or the summit or whatnot. So I created this product because I noticed that all my clients, and it's not just my clients, my friends, all of us, you know, when you travel and when you're kind of going hard like that, you're crashing, you know, after 4 or 5 days, or once that adrenaline, you know, kind of turns off, and you know you're bloated, you're fatigued, or you've got head fog, and just all these things. So I decided to just, you know, create a recipe using, you know, like 8 great greens. You know, there's tons of greens in it. There's obviously superfoods. There's adaptogens, which I think are so important for that adrenal fatigue, especially when we're going hard like that. And there's some digestive enzymes, probiotics and prebiotics in it so that you can actually absorb all these nutrients. So I did that for a while, and they were literally just in Ziploc bags, and they would go travel, and I'm like, please take these with you. Just have one a day. Just add it to some water and just drink it and come back to me whole, you know? And it was really working for them. So a couple years ago at the Cannes Film Festival, and I think I shared this story with you briefly, they were there with some clients. They were drinking this. They had some friends there that were looking at them and saying, what is that you're drinking? Because I don't look or feel like you right now, and I was with you till 5 a.m. So, and they wanted to know what it was, and I had some extra, and they had to try it. They loved it, and it became a thing. And they said, we need this, and we need to be able to get our hands on this. So now it's in a little package.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically what it's got. It's got 12 grams of vegan protein, so it's vegan, organic, natural, all the good things, primarily from yellow peas, and it's low in calorie, which I like because then you can kind of bulk it up. If you want to throw a banana or some avocado in it, blend it up with some ice or some berries, it's still, you know, under 200 or 300 calories. It's not something that becomes 400 or 500 calories like a lot of these other products out there that start off like 250. So it's not intrusive to your day. It's like a snack. You can have it any time. And it's low in sugar because we just use natural sugars and a little bit of stevia. And it's really to just kind of carry you through. I say it's got everything that you need in a day because it's got those greens, it's got the superfoods, the adaptogens, and it's just got enough goodness in you that I know that it's everything that you have on top of it. It's like a bonus. So that's basically what it is. And we have this in a cacao chocolate flavor.
I know.
I'm looking at this ingredient panel, and it's, such an incredible combination of ingredients that you've put into this. It really seems amazing. And I just had my first one. I just tried it, and it's delicious.
Yay!
And full disclosure, I am on my fast. I'm in 5 day of my fast. But I'm convincing myself that I don't feel like I broke my fast or I'm cheating because I'm going to substitute this for one of the Prolong packets.
Yes.
I feel like I like Prolong, but I feel like this is a much better, substitute for, that little bit of substance.
Yes, absolutely.
And I feel great from it. I do feel a nice, very present, and I feel energized.
Yeah.
And again, it tastes delicious.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad. And, and I don't actually share this very often, but a little disclaimer from me is that everything has been Reiki'd.
Wow.
So there's energy that goes out for every single order, every single packet, every single item. It's all received energy work.
Wow.
So I think that actually I know, and now I feel comfortable saying it because it might have sounded a little bit woo woo before, but we're in 2019 now and people seem to get it. But yeah, you're actually receiving a little bit of Reiki too when you get that packet. So
Incredible.
yeah.
And I see you brought us a couple cases, which I'm
Yes.
very excited because
Yes,
I'm going
dig
to
in.
Africa in a week.
Oh,
so
this is
I'm going to
perfect.
take all of those. Half of them I
get the other half.
I'm going to take half of them with me for the trip.
Yeah,
to be able to
it's
enjoy.
perfect. Yeah, you'll love it.
It's gonna be
And
great.
especially because you'll be in Africa and there's going to be all kinds of new bacteria
Right.
around you in the
Yes.
air and
Yeah.
everything. It's perfect to try and kind of help balance you out.
And can I ask you, with the adaptogenic herbs, so that seems to be a pretty hot topic lately.
Yeah.
It's more and more relevant, which is great. But I feel like a lot of people still don't really understand them or know what they are. Can we just dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so there's so many different ones, right? And we have maca and lucuma in it. And so basically, adaptogenic herbs are just plants that sort of help your body's adrenal system balance itself out. So it's not like giving more or less. It's just kind of helping it get back to what is, what is like a level, like a homeostasis for your body. And so that's what these herbs are for. And you can take too much, but you would have to take a lot. These are just small, supportive, like micro amounts that if you have it on a daily basis, it's very supportive. It's like taking your vitamin C or your magnesium, just sort of on a daily basis to kind of help balance you. And so with Just Add Water, we have maca, which is, obviously it's kind of good for a little bit of like endurance. It's great for both men and women. And then with the lucuma, there's also sort of skin beautifying, benefits to it. It's great for skin. It's great for wound healing. Again, it's also great for just balancing out the hormones. And especially when we're go all the time, that cortisol kind of kicks in, our stress levels go up, and that's what these herbs do, is it kind of help balance out, those stress responses that our body has when we are going a little bit too hard.
Got it. So it's almost like any herb that has a functional benefit to it can fall into that category of an adaptogenic herb?
Maybe not any herb, but there's a large number of herbs. So there's there's ashwagandha, there's holy basil, there's maca, there's lucuma, there's so many.
Yeah.
And it's very Ayurvedic, obviously. Right. And so there's so many, I couldn't list them all, but I wouldn't say any. There's some that kind of give you more energy. So for example, cacao is considered a plant medicine. But does it balance out your adrenals? Not necessarily, but it can give you energy. So not every single plant that has functional properties, but a lot of them.
Got it.
Yeah. So what's next for Serena? What are you? I know you're doing the TV show.
Yeah.
I know. What else is going on in your life?
Fun. Well, we actually have a really big project that I can't announce just yet.
Oh.
Coming out in about 2 months, where you will be seeing a lot more of all of this.
Oh,
It's like
great.
that's a little
Exciting.
teaser. I'll leave it on. So
You can
stay
tell us.
tuned.
We'll wait to release this.
It's really exciting. Actually, I'm really excited about it, and we'll have little teasers, and our website is relaunching. It's had a makeover, so that'll come up in probably in the next couple weeks. We'll have the big relaunch for that, and a lot of other products that are not only Just Add Water, which falls under Serena Loves, but we have a lot of other products that I love that are supportive of Culinary Alchemy. So we'll have teas and crystals, and all kinds of like products that are supportive for mindfulness and spirituality. And then we have a couple more products in the Just Add Water line that will launch before the end of the year. So that's very exciting, and some new packaging that will be very fun for the user. So that's what I can talk about. And then the thing that's happening in a couple months, you will see.
I can't wait.
But you can
Very
go on the
exciting.
website and sign up, and we'll send little messages to keep you informed.
So speaking of the website, what's the website?
The website is serenaloves.com. So it's just www.serenaloves.com. And Just Add Water you can find there, but it's also under justaddwaterinc.com.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And then also people can find you at Serena Loves on Instagram, or what's your Instagram handle?
The Instagram handle is Chef Serena Poon.
Got it.
And the TV show has its own little one. It's Serena Loves TV. And you can find, it on YouTube for the show. It's under Chef Serena Poon. On Spotify and Apple Podcasts, it's Serena Loves TV. Sorry, it's a little confusing, guys. There's a couple different handles, but definitely reach out to me on Instagram because I always respond.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great. It was so great having you. This was amazing.
Fun. Thank you so much, you guys. This
Yeah,
was
thank
awesome.
you.
Yes,
So
I can't wait
fun.
to go practice some culinary alchemy now.
Oh yeah, we're gonna do it. It'll be really fun. I should come in and do a little demo for you guys.
I love
Teach
it.
everybody, because do that thing with the paper. You'll
We will.
realize.
I'm gonna try it, yeah.
Yes.
Do it a few times, because
Okay.
you might get lucky once, twice, and then, but do it a few times, and then you'll start feeling those little triggers. Your ear may itch. There might be a little thing, and it'll tell you.
Very
That's
cool.
very
Yeah,
cool.
it's really cool.
Great. Well, we can't wait to have you back on at some point, and
Yay.
can't wait to find out what's happening in 2 months too.
You guys are gonna love
We're gonna
it.
keep in touch.
For sure. Thanks so much, you guys. This is
You're
awesome.
welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.